this poem, you can see that most of Wordsworth's poetry does not have a title, so we often call it by its first line, or we give it a nickname like the Daffodil poem. So this one we just call She Dwelt Among the Untrodden Ways. All right, I need a volunteer to read this one for us. It's nice and short. Thank you, Seth.
She dwelt among the untrodden ways, beside the sprinkled dove, a maid whom there were none to praise, and very few to love. A violet by a mossy stone, half hidden from the eye, fair as a star when only one is shining in the sky. She lived unknown, and few could know when Lucy ceased to be, but she's in her grave, and oh, the difference to me.
Okay. There's a whole collection of Wordsworth poetry with a girl named Lucy. We don't know who Lucy is, but do you remember my saying that there might have been another person in his life that he supported financially? I just always wondered if Lucy was his daughter that he had with Annette Vallon. We don't even know, daughter or son. There's not solid evidence that she existed, but just like this money and Annette, we do know there was an Annette Vallon. It's just suspicious. So I have been curious if Lucy, did they even write letters to each other? I don't know. Or did he just imagine what she would be like because he knew he had this other child? I don't know. Some Wordsworth scholars agree with that, and some give an entirely different perspective. Now, this one is a little bit ludicrous, but I'll just throw it out there. It's possible he just invented a character. But some scholars think that he invented a character that he could control, because the whole problem with society at that time, it's growing and developing so fast that, I told you he was becoming a little disgruntled by the state of things. And he didn't feel like people were really making an effort to live well and to breathe in the air. Like they're just busy humans working in dirty cities, So some people think he invented Lucy, and in this poem he kills her off because it gives him control, something he could control. Some people just think too much. I'm not sure about that. Anyway, let's look at this and try to characterize Lucy. Skim through again and see if you can have any guesses about the kind of person that she was.
She wasn't liked.
She was not well liked.
Lonely.
Probably lonely. What does it mean to dwell among the untrodden ways? For ground to be untrodden, it means it's a path that isn't well developed. Not a lot of people go that way. What's the term? She marches to the beat of her own drum, kind of thing. She didn't go down the path everybody else did. She was not a mainstream kind of girl. But there were none to praise her. None. Zero, not a soul, praised her. So nobody had anything positive to say about her. That's kind of sad. And very few loved her. Well, how could somebody love her but not praise her?
If like was their parent or something, I guess.
That's what I'm thinking. Parental obligation. Like, we love her because she's our child, but really not much to comment on her. Like, it's sad. I'm going to tell you about someone that I know, and I don't think she or her mom would mind me saying this because she's not this person anymore. But Robin Fogg, who is head of directed studies in the high school, has a daughter named Megan, and she was a student here. And she was painfully shy. What do they call her? Selective mutism, which means that in certain situations, and lots of situations actually, she can't speak. So she was known just to kind of twirl her hair and look down, and you could say, "How are you?" And it was a struggle for her to say, "Fine." Like, that was hard. Her freshman year, I think, hid under the back staircase that goes up to the science rooms, you know, because she couldn't bear to go to lunch because it was too social for her. Like, really painful. And the teachers, it was hard for us, I think, because if we asked her a question in class, there was an awkward, like, 7 to 15 second pause before she could respond. And that's a long time when it's just silence and everybody's waiting, you know. So then she took my creative writing class, and it turned out she had a voice. It's just she couldn't speak it, but she could write it. And so she and I started our communication by emailing back and forth. Because there I could ask her a question, and I don't know how long it took her to respond. I think probably not long at all, because she could type really fast what she couldn't verbalize. And so we started building a relationship through that. And then she would send me her poetry and her short stories, and she wrote a play. And I have chills right now because I've never met someone with her artistry at her age, ever. Like, it's profound. Incredibly talented young lady. And so when she realized she could speak that way through her pen, she started writing a lot. And she was getting so much positive feedback from others that it gave her, I think, a greater bravery to speak out. Y'all, by her senior year of high school, she spoke in chapel, like gave a little sermonette. She sang in the talent show, and the play that she wrote for my Playwriting 101 class, she actually produced here in the Black Box Theater, and like she held auditions, and a couple of girls took the 2 main roles in the play, and they performed it here in the Black Box, and it was her play that she wrote. She submitted it and made it high up into the Scholastic Awards for her playwriting. Now in college, her professors are like in awe of her. They've put her in charge of the whole, it's like an anthology of student works. She's in charge of that magazine. She's submitted stuff for all kinds of professional things. The accolades she's getting are astounding. Everyone will know who Megan Fogg is one day because she's that talented of a writer. And God is slowly, like, really healing her selective mutism, so now she can carry a conversation with much greater ease than she used to be able to. But she was sort of a total wallflower when she was here, and to watch that transformation is amazing. How that's related to Lucy, she starts with not a lot of attention. No one really praising her. A few people really loved her, but I want to show you the meaning she can have to somebody the same way that Megan has incredible meaning for me. In the second stanza, Lucy was a violet by a mossy stone, half hidden from the eye. Okay, just visualize that for a minute. As my grandparents used to have all these woods behind their house, and to me, it was an entire world. It was probably not but a couple of acres, but to me, it was like the magical forest. And so I remember going out there like in the late winter, and there were vines to hang on, and there were streams, but everything was pretty much brown in the dead of winter, just brown. But you know, in the early spring, when that first flower starts to bud, you notice it so much because it's the first one. I have a peach tree in my front yard, and I've been watching that tree every day, knowing it's about to burst into bloom. Last night I went to check the mailbox, and I'm like, there are 2 pink flowers on this tree, 2. And it's so obvious, and they're beautiful because they're the only 2. So if you were in that kind of situation where everything else is kind of gloomy and dark around, but suddenly there's a violet, like, it's going to get your attention if you don't overlook it. So just think about what that means. Like, it would be easy to miss entirely because you're looking at everything around you, but if you stopped and looked down, you're like, oh my gosh, that color is amazing. How does that translate to a person? What is she like? It's a metaphor. Lucy is the violet by the mossy stone half hidden from the eye. What does that show about her?
She's kind of behind the scenes, but if you get to know her, she's amazing.
Yes, exactly. It's that person that is easy to overlook. They fly under the radar. They're a wallflower. At a party, you might not even notice they're there. But if you invest in getting to know that person, you're like, wow, they're really special. There's something unique about them. There's something different and beautiful about them. That's how she is. So the speaker then, who may be Wordsworth or maybe not, we're not going to assume that, but the speaker has found something really amazing about her. So that was the metaphor. The simile, though, is fair as a star when only one is shining in the sky. Okay, let's think about that one. Only one star in the sky. If you walk outside and there's only one star, there's a good chance it's not even emanating enough light for you to look up. But if you did, you couldn't miss it because it's the only one. But you also might mistake it for something else. Like, we would be like, must be a plane or a satellite or something because it's the only one. It would seem weird that there's only one star. Maybe it's a planet. So how does that relate to Lucy as a person?
She was misunderstood maybe, and people, they got the wrong idea about her because they didn't take the time to actually get to know her.
Exactly. Exactly. She's truly special and beautiful, again, if you take the time, but probably misunderstood by most people or ignored. She lived unknown. Nobody really got to know her. And few could know when Lucy ceased to be. What does it mean she ceased to be? She died. But she is in her grave, and oh, the difference to me. So we know that for the speaker, it made a tremendous impact. But I always think it's interesting to imagine if Wordsworth had supported this child that he never knew, and then he gets message that she died, and to him, he feels she's unknown because he never maybe got to know her, but his idea of who she really is makes a huge difference to him when she passes. I don't know. I just think there's a solid argument there that it could be. But again, we don't know that Wordsworth even is the speaker. We don't know who Lucy is. We don't know if he just created her. Maybe it was one of his other children. Who knows? All right. Last poem for today. Composed upon Westminster Bridge. Okay, in England, the Thames River runs through the middle of London. Like anywhere you go, you're probably going to be able to see the river. And sometimes we'll be on one side of it where the bulk of London is, and other times we'll be on the other side because that's where the Globe Theatre is, that's where Borough Market is. Now, many years ago, the side where the Globe Theatre was the bad side of town because it was where all the brothels and the theaters and the bars and taverns and all that were. So if you're on that side of the river, you were like an immoral character. Now, we embrace the theater. We don't see that as a bad thing at all. And Borough Market is my favorite market. Anywhere we will spend a whole day just right around that area, touring the Globe Theatre, going to Borough Market for a picnic lunch, walking across the huge Millennial Bridge to get to St. Paul's Cathedral. You can climb the stairs to the very tippy top of St. Paul's and see all over the city. You can go all the way down into the crypt to have some tea. And then we have dinner. I think it's scheduled to be roast beef and Yorkshire pudding and potatoes and stuff at Center Page Pub. And then we'll be going to the theater that night. It is a perfect, wonderful day. But you'll see then, and I want you to think about this when you're there, all these bridges, and as you're standing on one bridge, you can see multiple bridges because all Like you have to have easy ways to get from one side to the other of the Thames River. So the most famous bridge is Tower Bridge. It is the one with huge towers that you can actually go up in, and it's near the Tower of London, right beside Tower of London, and it's gorgeous. But a lot of people think that that's London Bridge because they assume the most beautiful bridge in London must be London Bridge. So the US actually bought London Bridge thinking that we were buying that one. And so they like disassemble it and send it to us, and it's out west somewhere. But we didn't know London Bridge was actually this interstate looking thing a little further down. But we thought we were getting that pretty one in the background. It's the funniest story ever. So now they have reassembled a London Bridge, but it's not pretty. I mean, it's really not pretty at all. Then you also have Westminster Bridge, which is just another bridge that crosses near Big Ben and the Houses of Parliament and that kind of thing. So from any bridge you're on, you're seeing more bridges to the right and to the left. Okay, this poem was written from Westminster Bridge. So Wordsworth, a long time ago, I mean, can you imagine bridges being there for centuries? And Wordsworth was on Westminster Bridge, and this maybe was his view that you see in the background there, looking toward Tower Bridge. So Mr. Zeffo and I had to be on that bridge once. Actually, all my students were at the Globe Theater watching King Lear, and I was having some medical problems, and I had to go to the doctor, and I'm like, I'm fine, I promise I'm fine, I gotta get to the Globe Theater and see the play. And they're like, you really have to go to the hospital. And so Matt Billett and Mr. Zeffo and I went to the hospital. But anyway, me and Mr. Zeffo are walking across Westminster Bridge to get to the hospital. And I am looking this way at this view. And it's really, really pretty. But on the other side, there was scaffolding. And I'm always so depressed when there's scaffolding because they're trying to preserve these really old things, but it's not pretty. And I have bad news. Big Ben is going to be under scaffolding when we're there. And I can't do anything about it. But anyway, in England at least, in London, they wanted to block your eye from all the scaffolding on the bridges. So they put up like a temporary white wall all on the right side of Westminster Bridge. So this way, beautiful view of Tower Bridge. This way, big white wall so that you don't see all the scaffolding, okay? So we're looking this way, because why would you want to stare at a white wall? But I'm seeing a little something in the corner of my eye. And I turn, and I see that there's print all over the white wall, like right in the center of the bridge. And it says, "Earth has not anything to show more fair. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by a sight so touching in its majesty." And I grab Mr. Zepp and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" And he's like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "It's Westminster Bridge! On Westminster Bridge!" Like the poem was written, printed on the big wall. Where in the world besides London would they cover their scaffolding with walls and then print poetry on it? I mean, come on. So I just have to stop and have my moment with the poem on Westminster Bridge, on Westminster Bridge. So let's read the poem. Now remember, Wordsworth hates city life, right? He likes nature. So let's look and see what he has to say at this particular time. I need another reader. Thank you, son.
Earth has not anything to show more fair, dull would he be his soul who could pass by, a sight so touching in its majesty. The city now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning's silent fair. Ships, towers, domes, theaters, and temples lie open unto the fields and to the sky. All bright and glittering in the smokeless air, never did sun more beautifully steep. In his first splendor valley, rock or hill, never saw and never felt a calm so deep. The river gladdeth at his own sweet will, dear God, the very houses seem asleep, and all that mighty heart is lying still.
What do you know? Wordsworth said something nice about city life. But what's different about it in this moment? it's not active. So when is this probably? Early in the morning. All right, who are my New York City fans in here? Okay. Have you been to Brooklyn Bridge? Were there lots of cars and taxis and people? Okay, you know the best time to go to Brooklyn Bridge? Like early dawn. Early dawn, because you know who's out there? The joggers, and that's it. And everybody's got on their earbuds, just a few people jogging along, but other than that, it's totally quiet. Like there's not the hubbub and the hustle and bustle of New York City yet. It's still really calm and quiet. You can actually hear the pounding of tennis shoes on the bridge. That's kind of like this, early in the morning, before all of the busyness of the day. And so Mr. Nature Lover himself says, Earth has not anything to show more fair. Ah, shocker. Look at the second line. Dull would he be of soul who could pass by a sight so touching in his majesty. Do you get like the offense of that? Or like how he's kind of sliding people in it? What does it mean, dull would he be of soul? Paraphrase.
The depth of understanding.
Yeah. He's like, you're an idiot if you can pass by this and not be moved by it. Okay? That's really what those two lines mean. Because he is suggesting that anybody that stood there would go, whoa, that's really pretty. And see, we'll have a few moments on tour where I'm going to have a lot of confidence, like, okay, this is a pretty cool moment. Like, they're going to get it. And so part of me might be thinking, if you don't get it, you're like, have a heart of steel, you know. That's kind of what he's saying. The city now doth like a garment wear the beauty of the morning. Okay, this is personification, right? The city is putting on a cloak, a garment. So visualize the colors of sunrise. If you came in early this morning and noticed the sun on the lake, it was very pink and the sun was reflecting. It was beautiful out here. But the city is putting on the morning like a cloak. So picture that red or that pink or that orange of the sky just covering up, coming up over the city. And it looks like the city is wrapping itself in it, like you would a coat. The beauty of the morning, silent, bare, ships, towers, domes, theaters, and temples lie open to the fields and to the sky. All bright and glittering in the smokeless air. See, that's important to him. I told you he hates the factories and the smoke coming up from it, but the air is smokeless right now because the factories aren't in session yet. They're not burning anything yet. Never did the sun more beautifully steep in his first splendor Valley Rock or Hill. I hope you live in a place nearby where you can see the sunrise. During some parts of the year when the days are a little bit longer, I have to pass the airport on the way to school, and the sun and Kennesaw Mountain right over the airport is one of my favorite views. I just want to sort of do away with all the like wires, telephone wires and things like that, but it's really, really pretty. But he says it's never been more beautiful. Never sigh, never felt a calm so deep. It's amazing to me that Wordsworth felt the peace even in the middle of this highly urban metropolis. The river glideth at his own sweet will. What literary technique is that? Personification. Because the river has a will. What river? The Thames. Dear God, the very houses seem asleep. What is that called? Personification. The houses seem asleep. They're just snoring. Not a lot of lights on right now, no busyness. Not even the tea kettles just yet. And all that mighty heart is lying still. What's the mighty heart? Yeah, it's London, the heart of London. That's a metaphor. The heart of England, London, is lying still. So if this is a place that he really, really loves, but we know he really also loved the daffodils and he moved to the Lake District. What is it that he really values?
Nature.
What did you say? Peace and quiet, nature, but this isn't nature.
Calmness. Beauty.
Beauty. It's beauty. It doesn't matter to him where it is. He looks for beauty. That's what an estate does. Do you know I love it when you don't have to wear your uniforms? Because I'm like, oh, what a beautiful sense of style. Oh, what a cute outfit. You know, if you're wearing your uniforms and you all look the same, I'm like, boring. You can find beauty anywhere, anytime. Look for it. Okay. Cole, you can turn that off. You should have all, thank you for being my assistant today.